I wasn't supposed to inherit a damn thing. My Uncle Alan died suddenly, heart attack at 62. We hadn't spoken in years, not since a falling out between him and my dad over some business betrayal no one would talk about. But I showed up to the funeral, out of respect, alone. My wife, Michelle, stayed home sick, which was becoming a pattern lately. After the service, Alan's attorney, Mr. Paxton, asked to speak with me privately. That's when he dropped it. Your uncle left everything to you. House, savings, shares of the company. It's all yours. I blinked. What? He handed me the will, signed, sealed, and witnessed. There was even a letter in Alan's handwriting. I never had children. You were always the closest thing I had to a son. I hope this gives you the life your father tried to take from me. I didn't know what that meant, but I knew one thing. My family was going to lose their minds. Especially my cousin Lucas, Alan's golden child. Raised like the heir. Groomed for the empire. I went home in a daze. Told Michelle everything. She didn't ask for details. Didn't cry. Didn't hug me. She just said, "You should be careful. People don't just give things away unless they're trying to bury something." Cliffhanger. That night, I found a burner phone hidden in Michelle's coat. Only 2 numbers. Dozens of messages. One of them was Lucas. I stared at the burner phone like it was radioactive. Messages from Michelle and Lucas filled the screen. Some were short, others cryptic, but they weren't just innocent check-ins. He still doesn't know. I can't stall much longer. Paxton's handing him the will today. Be ready. If he signs over the shares, we're in the clear. I sat on the edge of our bed, phone in my hand, listening to Michelle in the kitchen like nothing was wrong. Like she wasn't conspiring with my cousin behind my back. My head spun. I went through the phone's photos next. There weren't any of them together, not like that. But there were screenshots. One showed a life insurance policy, Alan's. Another? A document request for a will revision. But it was blurry. No names I could read. I copied everything and hid the phone under the floorboard in my office, unsure what to do yet. That night, I acted normal. Waited until she fell asleep. I couldn't confront her, not yet. Not without more. So I called the only person I knew could tell me something real, Mr. Paxton, Alan's lawyer. I asked if there had been any prior versions of the will, or requests to change it recently. He hesitated. Actually, yes. There was a call from someone pretending to be Alan about 2 months ago. They asked to revoke the current version and issue a new one. But when I called Alan to confirm, he said he hadn't made the request. I froze. Do you know who called? He checked the logs. It was made from your cousin Lucas's office line. My stomach flipped. Michelle. Lucas. The will. The life insurance. This wasn't an inheritance. This was a setup. Cliffhanger. I logged into Alan's old security system remotely using credentials Paxton gave me. There, saved under archived footage. A video from 3 days before Alan's death. It showed Lucas entering the house at 10:42 p.m. Alan was still alive. He never left. I stared at the footage on my laptop, my pulse pounding in my ears. Lucas, my cousin, the heir apparent, entered my uncle's house at 10:42 p.m. Alan was confirmed dead the next morning at 7:13 a.m. But here's the thing. There's no footage of Lucas leaving. Not that night. Not the next morning. Nothing. I rewound. Fast-forwarded. Checked every camera angle. Back door. Garage. Basement. Nothing. Lucas walked in and vanished. I immediately downloaded the footage to a hard drive and called Mr. Paxton. He confirmed Alan's official time of death, but said there were no signs of foul play. Just a bottle of scotch on the table and some expired heart meds beside his chair. But now, that looked more like a setup. I wanted to go to the police, but I hesitated. I needed more. So I played it cool. Kept my distance from Michelle. Pretended not to know anything. Pretended like we were celebrating my windfall together. That's when she surprised me. She came into my office late that night in silk pajamas and poured me a drink. Said all the right things. "I'm proud of you. Alan saw something in you. You deserve this." I watched her carefully. And then she said something strange. "Lucas told me you might sell the house. But I think you should keep it. We should go see it this weekend." Lucas told her? I never mentioned selling. That confirmed it. They were still in contact, still working together. Later, after she fell asleep, I searched her laptop. I'd never done it before. I didn't want to be that guy, but I had to be now. And there it was, buried deep in the downloads folder. A scanned document labeled ALN Final Will 2022.pdf. I opened it. It was a forged will. Different font. Different witness signatures. It named Lucas as sole beneficiary. The date? 1 week before Alan died. Cliffhanger. I flipped to the last page and saw Michelle's signature. She wasn't just helping Lucas. She was one of the witnesses. I stared at the forged will, Michelle's signature staring back at me like a ghost I didn't know was haunting me. She was part of it. Fully. Legally. She wasn't just helping Lucas. She helped fake the document meant to erase me from Alan's legacy. And Alan? He must have known. That's why the real will stayed locked with Paxton. That's why Lucas had to act fast. Why Michelle had to marry me, stay close, keep me distracted. I was the final piece of someone else's puzzle. The next morning, I booked an appointment with a private investigator. His name was Vaughn, retired cop, good with deep digs, no questions asked. I handed him a flash drive with the security footage, the fake will, and a photo of Michelle's burner phone. I told him I needed everything: travel records, bank statements, hidden property, aliases. He looked it over and simply said, "This goes deeper than your uncle's will, doesn't it?" I didn't respond. Because yeah, it did. That afternoon, Michelle left the house for a mani-pedi. I followed her. But she didn't go to a salon. She drove to Lucas's office. Parked. Waited. Lucas didn't come out. Instead, she met someone else. A man in a gray coat. Older. Balding. Looked like a lawyer. They exchanged something papers, I think. Then they shook hands. She looked back once before driving off. I was about to follow her when my phone buzzed. It was Vaughn. "You're gonna want to sit down." I pulled over. The second witness on that forged will? Her name's Elena Tripp. Local notary. Found dead in her apartment this morning. Overdose. No sign of forced entry. But get this, she filed a police report 2 days ago. What for? I asked, my voice barely there. Said she was being threatened by someone she notarized for. She described him. You're not gonna like who it matches. I already knew. Lucas. Cliffhanger. That night, I got home and found Michelle already inside, wearing a robe, cooking like nothing happened. She kissed me on the cheek and whispered, "We should talk. I think someone's trying to kill you." Michelle set 2 plates down like this was just another date night. Salmon, wine, candles. But her words hung in the air like a knife. "We should talk. I think someone's trying to kill you." I didn't answer. I just stared at her. At her perfect, unbothered expression. At the woman who signed a forged will, betrayed me with my own cousin, and now sat across from me as if she were the one in danger. She reached into her robe pocket and slid a USB drive across the table. "I was never supposed to fall for you," she said quietly. "I was just supposed to help Lucas get what he wanted." "You mean murder my uncle?" She flinched, but didn't deny it. "Lucas told me Alan was going to change the will again. Said Alan was paranoid. That he was going to cut everyone out. He wanted proof. He wanted leverage. I helped him get close. I lied. I did all of it." "And Elena Tripp?" I asked. Michelle's voice cracked. "That wasn't part of the plan. She got spooked after the notarization. She threatened to go to the cops. Now she's dead." Michelle went pale. "I didn't know he'd go that far," she whispered. I asked what was on the USB. "A recording. From the night Alan died. The security system had internal audio sensors. I copied it before Lucas wiped the drive. I grabbed it, ran to my office, plugged it in, and there it was clear as day. Alan's voice. Gruff. Tired. Talking to someone. Then Lucas. "You changed the will. It's my money, Lucas. I'll do with it what I damn well please. You think you can erase me like you erased your brother? Like you erased my mother?" Silence. "You're sick," Alan said. "You don't deserve a cent." Then a sound, something like a scuffle. A thud. Alan gasping. Then silence. Lucas didn't just threaten him. He killed him. I sat there, cold, shaking. Michelle stood in the doorway. "That's why I came clean," she said. "Because he said you were next. And I believe him." Cliffhanger. Just then, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. One text. "Dinner was cute. You should check your brakes in the morning. L." The message hit like a punch to the throat. "Dinner was cute. You should check your brakes in the morning. L." Lucas knew. Everything. The recording. Michelle's confession. That she'd flipped. He was watching. I didn't sleep that night. Parked my car on the street instead of the garage. First light, I had it towed to a mechanic under an alias. 2 hours later, the shop called me. "Your brake lines were cut. Clean slice. No rust. No corrosion. Someone wanted you dead. That was it. No more games. I called Paxton and told him everything. The recording, the threats, the murder, the forged will. He agreed to get the court involved, but said something strange before hanging up. There's one thing Alan never trusted in any of us. Paper. He kept a safe in his office, hidden in plain sight. He said, "If anything ever happens to me, the truth will still be on the walls." I drove to Alan's old house immediately. Still mine, technically. Dusty, quiet, cold. In his study, I scanned the bookshelves, the paintings, every wall. And then I found it, behind a vintage map of our family's land. A safe embedded into the brick. The code? His birthday. It clicked open. Inside, a ledger, a key, and a sealed envelope labeled, "For Claire, if she ever returns." I froze. Claire, my aunt, Alan's estranged sister, pronounced dead after a boating accident in Mexico 20 years ago. I opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter and a grainy photo. In it, Alan and Claire, standing together, alive. 10 years ago, the letter read, "I helped Claire disappear. She found out what Dad did, what Lucas wasn't supposed to inherit. If you're reading this, it means something went wrong. Claire has the real will, the one I never filed. Find her. Protect her. She's the only one who can burn it all down." Cliffhanger. I looked at the bottom of the photo. A date. A location. Tulum, Mexico. And scrawled in Alan's handwriting, "The answers are buried where the lies began." I booked a flight to Tulum that night. Michelle begged to come with me, but I told her to stay. I still didn't fully trust her, and if Lucas suspected she flipped, he'd be watching her every move. She was safer there. So was I? I landed in Mexico under a different name, rented a beat-up Jeep, drove toward the coordinates scrawled on the back of the photo Alan had left behind. It led to a weathered beach bungalow tucked between the jungle and the sea. No address, no signage, just wind chimes and salt in the air. I knocked. Nothing. I waited. Then the door opened, and there she was, Claire, a little older, hair silver-streaked, but unmistakable. She looked at me like she'd seen a ghost. "You have Alan's eyes," she said. I always hated that. We sat on the porch. She made tea like we were just catching up after years apart, not standing on the edge of a multi-generational conspiracy. She didn't ask how I found her. She already knew. Alan said it would come to this, that Lucas wouldn't stop until he controlled everything. I asked why she faked her death. Because Lucas tried to kill me. She told me everything. How Lucas found out she had documentation proving their father embezzled millions from the company in the 80s. How she confronted him. How their father cut her off completely and forced Alan to stay quiet. How Lucas tried to drown her during a family trip in Baja, but she survived. How Alan helped her vanish. He knew Lucas would come for him too one day. I begged him to leave the company, but he stayed. He thought he could fix it from the inside. I told her Alan was dead. I watched her eyes gloss over, but she didn't cry. "I already knew," she whispered. "He sent me one last letter. Told me you were the only one left who could be trusted." Then she pulled a battered lockbox from under the floorboards. Inside, the real will, signed by Alan 3 weeks before his death, leaving 60% of the company and estate to me, and the rest to Claire. Documents proving Lucas funneled company money into offshore accounts. A handwritten confession from their father. I copied everything. Took photos. Scanned it all. Claire stared out at the sea. "I'll give you the originals. But once you leave, I disappear again. If Lucas finds me, I'm dead." I promised to protect her. But as I packed the files and stepped outside, my Jeep was gone. And in the dirt, where the tires had been, footprints, leading into the jungle. Cliffhanger. My phone buzzed, an unknown number. "Nice reunion. But you forgot something. You brought a tail. L." The message was clear. "You brought a tail. L." Lucas had followed me to Tulum. I thought I was careful. New identity, burner phone, no traceable bookings, but I underestimated how far he'd go. I sprinted back into Claire's bungalow. "Pack. Now." She didn't ask questions. Just grabbed a canvas bag, stuffed it with cash, documents, and the original will. We bolted out the back toward the jungle trail she said led to an old diving shack Alan used when he visited. We ran. Humidity clung to my skin. Branches slashed at my arms. The jungle felt alive, heavy with secrets and predators. Then I heard it, footsteps behind us. Fast. Heavy. Not local. Lucas. Claire stopped suddenly. "Wait," she whispered. "This way." She led me off the path to a stone structure half swallowed by vines. Inside was pitch black except for a crack of light through the collapsed roof. We caught our breath. I held the documents like they were gold. Then she turned to me. Her eyes changed. "I need you to listen closely." "What is it?" "There's one more person involved. Someone no one's looked at." "Who?" She looked like she didn't want to say it. "Your father." I froze. "Alan never betrayed your dad. It was the other way around. Your dad helped Lucas forge early documents, transfer company shares to a shell corp before the estate was restructured. He made himself look like the victim, but he was in on it." "No," I whispered. "That's not possible." "It is. I have proof. It's buried in the family crypt, under the fake foundation stone. Alan left it there." I reeled. My entire life, I believed my father had been the honest one, the exiled brother. But he wasn't exiled, he was a co-conspirator. Then we heard voices. 3 of them. One was Lucas. Another was Michelle. The third? My father. He was supposed to be dead. Claire's face went white. We barely escaped through the back wall. Claire knew the trails better than anyone. But just before we reached the road, she shoved the bag into my chest. "They'll never stop if I'm alive. But you still can." "No, Claire, wait." She looked at me one last time. "Tell the truth. All of it." Then she took off into the jungle alone. I chased her, but lost her. She disappeared. Again. All I had now were her words, the files, and the new name carved into my memory. My father. Cliffhanger. Back at my hotel, a package waited for me. No label. No return address. Inside, a photo of Claire tied to a chair, a bloodied wedding ring, and a single note. "Next time, she won't run. Bring the will. Come home, Dad." I returned home to hell. My mind was a storm. Claire's warning, the photograph, the bloodied wedding ring. My father, the man I mourned, was alive. And not just alive. He was the puppet master. Michelle picked me up from the airport. She looked shaken, pale. Said nothing during the ride until we were halfway home. "I didn't know," she whispered. "He made me believe you were losing it." Said Claire was the threat. "You mean the woman tied to a chair in the photo I just got in the mail?" She flinched. "He said if I didn't help him, I'd be next." I stared at her. "Next for what, Michelle? A payoff? A grave?" Tears welled in her eyes. But I was done trusting anyone. When we got to the house, 2 men in suits were parked across the street. Not police. Not FBI. Just watchers. Michelle glanced at them nervously. "He said you'd come to him when you were ready. That you'd bring the will." That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed up rereading Claire's letter, the will, and the documents exposing my father's name on the original shell company transfers. I pieced together the timeline. My father wasn't pushed out by Alan. He and Lucas had been funneling company funds to an offshore account for decades. When Alan discovered it, he froze everything. That's when Lucas killed him. My father staged his death 3 years ago, disappearing into the shadows to rebuild the scheme with Lucas as his front. It had always been about the legacy, the money, the company name. And anyone in the way, Alan, Claire, now me, was disposable. So I made my decision. I packed a fake version of the will, wrote a letter addressed to the court, sent the original to Paxton with explicit instructions. Release to the judge if anything happens to me. Then I drove to the meeting point, an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. Of course it was. Inside, Michelle, Lucas, and him, my father. He stepped out of the shadows like a ghost, eyes hard, hands steady. "You're thinner," he said. "I always told you stress would kill you." I didn't speak. He gestured for the bag, the will. I held it out. But before he could take it, I said, "Where's Claire?" He smiled. "You always had a soft spot for ghosts." He signaled to someone in the dark. And then Claire was dragged out. Gagged. Bruised. Alive. Lucas raised a pistol to her head. "Trade," my father said. "The will, or she dies." Cliffhanger. I reached for the bag. Slowly. Then Michelle lunged. Grabbed the gun. 2 shots. Someone hit the floor. In the confusion, Claire screamed. And the lights went out. Darkness swallowed everything. Gunshots echoed. Screams. The stench of metal and fear thick in the air. I dropped to the floor, crawling toward where I thought Claire had fallen. I felt her arms still warm, still moving. She was alive, but someone else wasn't. As the emergency lights flickered on, I saw the carnage. Lucas collapsed. blood pooling from his chest. Michelle standing over him, gun still trembling in her hands. I didn't mean to. He was going to, she stammered, sobbing. But I didn't care about Lucas anymore. I only cared about Claire. I pulled the gag from her mouth, unbound her wrists. She collapsed into me. He was going to kill you, she whispered. He said he already killed Alan, that you were next. I looked up. My father stood across the room, calm, cold, hands in his pockets like none of this mattered. Lucas gasped once, then went still, dead. Michelle dropped the gun and slid to the ground, staring at what she'd done. You always were messy, my father said to her, with more annoyance than grief. Then to me, this didn't have to end this way. You were supposed to sign it over, play your part, walk away, and live in your shadow? He stepped closer. You think Alan was some hero? He stole from me. He poisoned the family name. I was the one who built everything. Claire rose slowly behind me. No, she said. You corrupted it. You lied to your children, your partners, your wife. You didn't lose control. You gave it up for greed. And then my father said something that made the world tilt. You think you're special? You were never even mine. Silence. What? He smiled. Your mother had an affair with one of Alan's friends. You think I didn't know? You were just the most convenient piece on the board. My throat closed. The man I called father for 35 years just erased it all. And then he pulled a gun. I can't leave loose ends. He aimed at Claire, but before he could fire, Michelle tackled him. Another shot rang out. They both dropped. Claire screamed. I ran to Michelle, blood soaking her side. I had to stop him, she whispered. I had to do something right. My father? Shot through the neck. Gone. Cliffhanger. Michelle was still breathing, barely. As the sirens neared, Claire pressed a bloodied paper into my hand. I took it before he could burn it, she said. It was a second confession. Signed. Everything he did. Every account. Every name. Enough to bury his entire empire. By the time the police arrived, my entire life lay scattered in that warehouse. Lucas dead. My father dead. Michelle rushed to the hospital, barely hanging on. Claire alive but emotionally shredded. And me sitting in the middle of it all, holding a confession that could burn everything to the ground. The weeks that followed were a blur of courtrooms, headlines, subpoenas, and depositions. Claire and I turned over everything. The real will. The recorded confession from Lucas. The audio footage of Alan's final moments. The signed ledger from my father's secret accounts. And the final nail, the blood-soaked confession Claire saved the night everything exploded. We gave it all to the DA. The courtroom overflowed with reporters as they laid it out for the world. How my father faked his death. How Lucas murdered Alan to steal the inheritance. How Michelle was planted in my life to manipulate the outcome. Michelle, still recovering, testified remotely. Her confession saved her from jail time but destroyed any chance of anonymity. I loved him, she said, voice cracking through the video feed. I lost myself. Claire finally got her name back. Her legacy. Her truth. The company? We dissolved it. We sold off the assets, shut down operations, and donated the bulk of the estate to charities Alan once supported. It was the only way to wipe the blood off the brand. When the judge read the final ruling, I felt nothing. No joy. No victory. Just release. And when it was over, Claire and I walked out together into the cold air. We did it, she said softly. Did we? I asked. She paused. We survived. That's something. Cliffhanger. But the next day, an envelope showed up at my door. Inside, a photo of a young boy, a DNA test, and a sticky note. He's yours. You don't remember her name, but she remembered you. M. Michelle's final secret hadn't died in that warehouse. I stared at the photo for what felt like hours. A boy, maybe 5, brown eyes, messy dark hair, smiling wide with a dimple I recognized in the mirror every morning. The DNA report was real, 99.97% probability. He was mine, but I didn't remember the mother. No name, no face, just the scribbled note. You don't remember her name, but she remembered you. M. I called the number listed on the report, expecting a lawyer, a caseworker, someone official. But it went straight to voicemail. A woman's voice. Calm. Warm. Hi, you've reached Natalie. I can't come to the phone right now. If this is about Jeremy, please leave your name. Natalie. A vague memory stirred. A brief relationship during a rough patch in my early 30s. We hooked up a few times after a show, Then I ghosted when Michelle and I reconciled. She must have found out she was pregnant after I disappeared. And now, Michelle had known. She must have uncovered it during one of her deep dives into my past. But she never told me, never confronted me. She'd held on to the truth and used it as her final card. I called Claire, told her everything. She was quiet for a long time. "You have a chance to do something right this time," she finally said. I tracked Natalie down. She lived 3 hours away in a quiet coastal town. Taught piano. Raised Jeremy alone. I showed up on her doorstep, trembling, rehearsing apologies I knew would never be enough. She opened the door, stared at me. "I figured you'd come," she said softly. We talked for hours. She didn't want money. She didn't want revenge. She just wanted Jeremy to know who his father was. And the kid? He was incredible. Curious. Sharp. He already played guitar. Had questions about the stars. Built Lego empires like a miniature architect. When he asked who I was, Natalie said, "A friend who might be around a lot more now." And that was enough. But not everyone was ready to let go of the past. That night, I got another email. No text. Just a single image. A passport. Moroccan. Name, Elena Gray. And a photo. Michelle. Alive. Cliffhanger. Beneath it, a short typed message. "Don't get too comfortable. You took my future. So I'm taking yours." She was alive. Michelle. The woman I watched bleed out on the warehouse floor. The woman who confessed. The woman who saved my life, and then vanished. But now she was back, under a new identity. Elena Gray. The email included a recent photo of her sipping tea in Marrakesh, sunglasses on, lips curled in that signature smirk. Attached was a birth certificate. Not mine. Not hers. Jeremy's. And stamped across the bottom. Petition for custody. Filed in an international court. Michelle was playing her endgame. She couldn't take my money, my company, or my name. So now she wanted my son. The one child I never knew I had, until weeks ago. I called Natalie immediately. Her voice was calm, but I could hear the tremble. A man came to Jeremy's school asking questions. He said he was a legal guardian. He had Michelle's last name. Showed paperwork. I nearly dropped the phone. She was setting it up. Twisting the law. Exploiting the one gap she knew I couldn't close fast enough. Time. I flew to Morocco the next morning. Claire begged me not to go alone. But this wasn't just about the will anymore. This was about Jeremy. I landed and headed straight to the embassy. Presented the birth certificate, the custody paperwork, and the DNA test. The U.S. consulate official looked me in the eye and said, "You need to get him out of the country now. If she files for full custody here and wins, it'll take years to undo." I booked a flight for Natalie and Jeremy that night. Told them to pack and leave from a different airport under new tickets. Then I set up a meeting with Michelle. Public. Controlled. A cafe overlooking the Medina, crowded and full of witnesses. She arrived in all white. New hair. New accent. Same venom. "You never really knew me," she said. "That was your first mistake. You're not taking him," I said. "He's not yours." She smiled. "Neither were you. But I still owned you." Then she leaned in. "You think this is about custody? This is about legacy. I'm not here to be his mother. I'm here to make sure you don't get to be his father." She slid a photo across the table. Jeremy. On a swing. With a red dot on his chest. A laser. Sniper. I pressed send, and he's gone, she whispered. Cliffhanger. Then she stood, dropped the phone on the table, and walked away. One number. One shot. 1 second to decide. And the phone started ringing. The phone rang on the cafe table. Each vibration pounded in my chest like a countdown. Michelle's words echoed. One number. One shot. 1 second to decide. I picked up the phone. One number on the screen. Send. The message typed out. Green light. If I send it, she said, Jeremy would die. If I didn't, she'd vanish again. Or worse, file 100 custody claims in countries where she could win. She wanted control. One final grip on my throat. She didn't want to raise Jeremy. She just wanted to ruin me. But she underestimated one thing. I'd been planning for this. I slid my hand under the table, pressed the button on a tiny black box I'd been carrying since the moment I stepped off the plane. A GPS tracker, hidden in the phone she gave me, tied directly to the local authorities and Interpol. Less than 5 seconds after I hit it, plainclothes agents tackled Michelle to the ground as she stepped into the alley behind the cafe. She screamed, kicked, called me every name she could think of. But it was over. The sniper? A hired actor. Not a real weapon. Michelle had staged the whole thing again. But this time, her threat crossed a legal line. Child endangerment, international extortion, fraud, attempted kidnapping. She was done running. They extradited her to the U.S. within the week. She'll serve a long, quiet sentence behind bars. Natalie and Jeremy made it home safely. The court granted me shared custody with full legal guardianship. We're taking it slow, one day at a time. Claire moved back stateside. She's finally free. She's writing a book. Calls it the will that wasn't meant for me. Fitting. 6 months later. It's a Sunday. I'm at the park with Jeremy. He's learning how to ride a bike. Laughing. Falling. Getting back up again. He doesn't know the full story. Not yet. But he will one day. He'll know that legacies aren't about money, or property, or names etched into legal documents. They're about truth. About what you do when the past tries to bury you. About who you choose to become, even when everything you thought was real falls apart. He looks at me now. Dad, did you see that? I smile. Yeah, buddy. I saw everything.